Did you know? The developers of New Super Luigi U cheated to make the game easier than they wanted you to think it is. Luigi U was originally released as DLC for New Super Mario Bros. U, but with harder levels that only gave you 100 seconds to reach the flagpole. But the devs made Luigi seconds 35% longer than Mario seconds. In an interview, the devs said even though they're the guys who made the stages, they were having trouble beating them that quick, and worried the game'd be too hard for the fans at home. They considered making all the stages shorter or doubling the timer to 200 seconds, but they didn't want to redesign the whole game, and 100 was such a nice round number, so they fudged the numbers. We timed it ourselves, and the seconds in most Mario games, including New Super Mario Bros. U, aren't real seconds. Each tick is really only about 3/4 of a second, but for the Luigi DLC, they make each tick one actual second. In other words, 100 Luigi seconds are about 135 Mario seconds, which makes the game a lot easier than you're led to believe. Not only on Wii U, but also the Switch Deluxe Edition. We recently replayed all the new Super Mario games, read a bunch of old interviews, and did some digging to find some secrets, Easter eggs, and behind-the-scenes secrets for the entire series. Now, we know these games aren't the most highly regarded Mario games, and a lot of folks say they can't hold a candle to 3D Mario. But let's get one thing clear. In terms of sales, the new Super Mario games are way more popular than 3D Mario. The first one sold over 30 million copies, which is more than the entire Metroid and F-Zero franchises combined. And the sequel on Wii sold another 30 million. With those kind of numbers, you might be wondering why they haven't made a new one in almost a decade. We'll get to that later, but first, let's get into some trivia. For most people, when they think of Mario development, they think of Shigeru Miyamoto. But when it comes to the new Super series, they should really be thinking of another guy, Takashi Tezuka, who's basically been in charge of 2D Mario since the Super Nintendo. According to Miyamoto, Mario was created not only by myself, but also with Mr. Tezuka. I am kind of shy accepting all the compliments myself all the time. Tezuka's sort of my right-hand man at Nintendo, and he's responsible for New Super Mario Bros. We talk a lot about the game, but basically he's in charge. One thing that might surprise fans of the new Super games is why they have that distinctive art style. Every 2D Mario that came before was 2D pixel art, but New Super Mario was more like 2.5D, and used 3D models as well as sprites made from pre-rendered 3D models. All the sequels use that art style as well. At this point, it's become the series' iconic look. But it wasn't actually an artistic choice. According to Tezuka, it was mostly just because it was way easier. Back when the first game launched on DS, he told Nintendo Power, "We chose that style because it makes certain types of expression easier. We can rotate characters, make them bigger, make them smaller, etc. Those types of things are more difficult with 2D sprites. Also, current development tools tend to favor 3D graphics." New Super Mario Bros. On DS was originally supposed to have 2-player co-op. A few screenshots can be seen in an issue of Nintendo Power printed about 6 months before the game hit store shelves. The magazine says, "New Super Mario Bros. Features a 2-player co-op mode, a first for the series." Not content simply to keep Luigi out of the limelight, Mario now uses his brother as a human shield. Maybe next time Luigi should leave his hotshot sibling to rot in the Haunted Mansion. Well, that's pretty much what happened, since co-op ended up getting cut and replaced with a small versus mode with only 5 stages. You can play single player as Luigi, but he has the exact same physics as Mario, so it's just a cosmetic difference. The gaming press reported seeing an early build where Bowser was playable as well, possibly as a reward for beating the game, but it didn't make it into the final game. The idea for full-on co-op eventually made its way into New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but instead of just 2 or 3 characters, it had 4. Mario, Luigi, a Gold the Yellow Toad, and Buck and Berry the Blue Toad. Although we should note these Toad names are contentious, they're commonly used by fans, but the Super Mario Wiki refuses to acknowledge them. Those names come from a Destructoid article claiming a Nintendo of America employee shared them off camera, but some fans thought the article was a joke. So we checked in with Destructoid's author for more details, and he said there were nicknames used by some members of the Japanese Mario team, but Miyamoto made it clear that he didn't want those toads to have names, ever. So whether they're really named Gold and Buck and Berry, we'll leave that up to you to decide. Regardless, all 4 characters controlled identically and didn't have unique physics or abilities. Other characters like Wario and Waluigi were considered, but fans would have expected them to have special skills, and Nintendo didn't want to do that. According to Miyamoto, Mario and Luigi are the same as always, of course, and suggestions for the other 2 characters included Wario and Waluigi, Toad, and Princess Peach. The thing is that with Wario, we need to have a fart attack, Peach would have to be able to fly with her skirt, and so on. With this game, we wanted every character to play the same way. Okay, Miyamoto, we suppose that does keep everyone on a more even playing field, but come on, it ain't esports, it's a party game. Peach flying and Wario farting would have been way better than two Toads. After Mario Wii was already finished, the devs kept on playing it for fun, and during their play sessions they came up with some ideas for a challenge mode, but it was too late to add it into the game, and DLC wasn't really a thing back then, at least not for Nintendo. They still wanted to share those challenges with fans though, so they posted them on Nintendo's official Japanese website. There were 89 challenges, all ranked from 1 to 5 stars, like finishing levels with 0 points, self-imposed limitations like winning with Mini Mario, and speedrun times for every stage. Nintendo released the challenge list in English too, but for some reason they later deleted it. They also banned that webpage from the Internet Archive, so it's completely wiped off the internet with no way to find it. Lucky for us though, one of our viewers printed it out on a piece of paper about a decade ago and sent us pictures. So here they are if you're curious, or if you're a hardcore fan who thinks you've got what it takes to complete them. Having to get those challenges off a website wasn't ideal though, which is why the devs built them directly into the next game, New Super Mario Bros. U, as a separate mode available right from the home screen. There's actually less of them, with Mario U having only 67 instead of 89, but they take place on their own custom courses, so it's definitely a more fleshed out experience. This situation of supplemental content being online instead of in the game itself was actually reversed for hint movies. They were included in Mario Wii, but only on the internet for Mario U. In case you don't remember, if you go to Peach's Castle in Mario Wii, you can watch videos that teach you how to do super skills, speedruns, and secrets. There's some tricky techniques in there, so tricky in fact that some fans thought they were tool-assisted or made by bots. But the gameplay was actually from Nintendo debuggers, with a director and other high-level staff breathing down their necks to make sure everything was perfect. Every time they went through a pipe, they had to go right down the middle. If there were a group of coins floating in the air, they either had to skip them for speed or grab them all. Only getting some was unacceptable, and meant they'd have to reset and start over. The debuggers replayed again and again until all 65 hint movies were absolutely flawless. They did something similar for Mario U, but this time Nintendo put all the hint movies on the game's YouTube channel. When New Super Mario Bros. Wii released in 2009, it outsold Mario Galaxy almost 3 to 1. But it might have sold a tiny bit more if not for an Australian man named James Burt. Burt got a copy from a local game shop about 2 weeks before the official release date. Then after some of his hacker buddies talked him into it, he uploaded the game to the internet so anyone could play it for free, and about 50,000 fans did exactly that. That's when things took a turn for the worst. We interviewed James, and he told us, "My house was raided, and there were about 6 local authorities and Nintendo lawyers with big black plastic bags who came to my house and took my Wii and a handful of DVDs and Wii games." Long story short, he ended up owing Nintendo $1.6 million for potentially lost sales. Nintendo's senior director of anti-piracy told the gaming press that James would end up paying, quote, "a significantly lesser amount." We asked James how much that undisclosed amount was, and he said it was $0.00. James never paid Nintendo a single penny. He declared bankruptcy as part of the agreement with Nintendo, which had some long-lasting effects on his credit score, but otherwise he counts himself lucky. He thinks Nintendo just wanted to make an example out of him to scare away other pirates who might want to do something similar. If you've heard this story before, you might have heard that 3 years later, Nintendo sent James a limited edition Ganondorf figurine. Gaming outlets framed it as Nintendo letting bygones be bygones, as sort of an olive branch to say that they forgave him for pirating Mario. That's a fun story, but James said that's not what actually happened. He told us, "When journalists don't know, they just make it up, I guess. They never bothered to ask me, which is why I'm happy to go into detail with DidYouKnowGaming." The real reason was that he won a contest at the local game shop, because he spent more money than anyone else that month on Nintendo products, so they gave him Ganondorf as a prize. James says even after everything that happened, he still loves Nintendo and doesn't have any hard feelings about the Mario lawsuit. And in case you're wondering, yes, they did eventually give him his Wii, games, and DVDs back. Nintendo games, and especially Mario, almost never leave Nintendo consoles, but Mario Wii was one of the few exceptions. Almost a decade after its original release, it got an official, upgraded port on the Nvidia Shield TV. The original Wii version ran in 480p, but on the Shield it runs at 1080p and 60 FPS. Here they are side by side, and we'll zoom in a little so it's easier to see the difference. Not only is it leagues better than the original, but it sold for just $10. A few other classic games got the same treatment and had their motion controls turned into normal controls, like Donkey Kong Country Returns and Twilight Princess. Nintendo agreed to the partnership as a way of expanding into the Chinese market. Unfortunately though, they didn't sell too well, so some games that got announced, like Mario Kart Wii, never got released. Well, not officially anyway. Some folks just downloaded Dolphin emulators on their shields and were off to the races. This video is mostly about the mainline New Super Mario games, but there's actually one more that most people don't even know exists. New Super Mario Bros. Wii Coin World was an arcade game developed by Capcom in 2011, 2 years after the Wii version. But unfortunately for Mario enthusiasts, it was only released in Japan. Coin World even had its own 6-song soundtrack. Half are remixes of music from the mainline games, and the other half are fully original, one of which you're hearing right now. The soundtrack might actually be the best part of the game, because as far as gameplay, it's mostly a small-stakes gambling simulator. You have to cash in some real-life yen to get arcade tokens. Then you'll be spending most of your time playing slots. Most forms of gambling are illegal in Japan, so even if you hit it big, you'll get more tokens you can exchange for real cash. All you really do is keep playing slots or spend them on other games in the same arcade. In addition to slots, Capcom also threw some simple minigames into the mix, a Bowser boss fight, and support for up to 4 players. Fans outside Japan aren't missing out on too much by not being able to play Coin World, unless they're really into gambling, of course. But it's definitely an interesting piece of Mario history, and you can't hate that soundtrack. After the first 2 New Super Mario games went gangbusters, Nintendo decided to do something they'd never done before: develop 2 2D Mario games at the same time, one for 3DS and one for Wii U, with each team trying to outdo each other like rivals. But Nintendo didn't have enough developers for 2 full teams, so Tezuka started what he called a Mario Cram School to train a bunch of designers all at once. Yosuke Amano was one of the students, and was eventually chosen to direct the 3DS project. He said, "Participants got a firm grasp of the basic ingredients of what makes 2D Super Mario enjoyable and experience actually making stages, so we were able to begin this project with a solid foundation. Mario Cram School resulted in courses twice the number of staff it usually takes to make Mario courses, and all that new blood allowed us to make something new that previous development teams so far hadn't." With both games being made at the same time, Tezuka was constantly mixing them up, and sometimes people had to remind him which game they were currently working on. He was trying to figure out how to make the 2 games unique, and after a lunch with Miyamoto, came back to the office with a new idea: to make the 3DS version focus on coin collecting. They were originally thinking about calling it New Super Mario Bros. Gold, but worried they might make it look like a small-scale spin-off, so they ended up calling it New Super Mario Bros. 2 instead, to send the message that this was a full-size mainline entry. To make collecting faster, the Cram School students added the gold block that shoots coins out of Mario's head. When they showed it to Miyamoto, he thought it was kinda dumb. According to the director Amano, Miyamoto-san said, "I don't like it. He didn't like how you never really understand it. You put this thing you don't really understand on your head, and for no clear reason, coins come out." Miyamoto said that he hated how he didn't know what he was supposed to do after suddenly getting this block on his head. Miyamoto's got a background in industrial design, so the propeller mushroom introduced in the previous game made sense, but a block attaching to Mario's head and dumping out coins was just nonsense. Eventually, though, he reluctantly accepted and made it into the final game. Tezuka said that the goal of 1,000,000 coins was meant to, quote, "keep people coming back potentially forever." And he did mean forever. Worldwide, fans collected about 3 trillion coins. On our recent playthrough, we finished with 100% completion, grabbing every coin along the way. But when the credits rolled, we'd only managed to get about 50,000. We weren't even close, and full disclosure, we didn't replay stages forever and ever to get to 1,000,000. In the run-up to launch day, Nintendo used the Million Coin Challenge as a major marketing campaign, even mass emailing fans to get them excited for it, all while the actual reward was shrouded in mystery. A lot of fans were expecting something big, and speculation was wild about what it was going to unlock. But once the game released and people started crossing the finish line, everyone found out the reward was just a different title screen. Some folks weren't too happy about it. But little did they know, there was another unlockable title screen for 9,999,999 coins, which changes the Mario statue into a Tanuki. New Super Mario Bros. 2 is generally considered the least memorable entry in the series, but it actually left a pretty hefty legacy. It was the game that introduced Gold Mario, who's pretty much everywhere now. He's been in 3 Mario Kart games, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, Mario Party, and he's even got his own costume in Mario Odyssey. The game also got its own Smash Ultimate stage, where collecting 100 coins gets you the Gold Flower power-up. And New Super Mario Bros. 2 was even the first Nintendo game to release simultaneously in digital and physical formats. Of course, that's not to say the other games don't have legacies as well. Mario U arguably gave us the series' most pervasive addition, Nabbit the Thieving Rabbit. Originally, he was just a minigame character you had to chase chased down after he stole Toad's stuff, but he became a playable character in Luigi U and ultimately became a series mainstay, appearing in over a dozen games. He's shrouded in mystery. Some even think he's Bowser Jr. in disguise due to their masks, but both characters have been seen in the same place at the same time, so that theory doesn't hold up. In reality, there's only a couple solid facts known about him. If you check out his flag in Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, it says he lives on the Mushroom Kingdom's secret island. That's the purple house you unlock after Mario U's final boss. It's full of records, so we guess the implications that Nablet's been following Mario and spying on him throughout the entire game. That interpretation's backed up by an Easter egg, where if you take too long to open a treasure chest, Nabbit will jump in and out of nowhere and steal it. Nintendo also added a little something to the Deluxe Edition. On Wii U, Mario gets a kiss from the princess after beating Bowser, but on Switch, you can see the same cutscene but with Nabbit being a peeping Tom. Speaking of Easter eggs, the devs also added one into Mario U's title screen. Normally, it looks like this with all 4 characters butt stomping, but if you don't push any buttons, it'll autoplay cutscenes, then eventually cycle back to the title screen. But this time, Luigi will trip and misses his butt stomp, and stand around looking confused. This secret's also in the Switch version. The Switch version has been out for over 4 years now, and 10 years since the original Wii U version, which has led many to ask, is there even gonna be another new Super Mario game? In a couple 2012 interviews, Tezuka emphasized that they only want to release one game on each console. I don't know if you've noticed, but with each hardware iteration we release a new Super Mario for each one. It would be difficult to bring 2 or 3 side-scrolling Mario games because the one we released has already done what we wanted to accomplish on that hardware. So possibly in his mind, U Deluxe counts as the one for the Switch hardware. Also, they kinda burnt themselves out. In another interview, the devs say they exhausted all their ideas when they released New Super Mario 2 and U in the same year, not to mention making both games DLC. One theory we've seen in recent years is that Mario Maker killed the mainline 2D series, that Nintendo must think there's no need for a new game when fans can make their own levels and play a near infinite number built by millions of fans. But according to Tezuka, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Mario developers build up the whole world, making sure the courses all fit well together, he said in 2014. I don't think the overall fun you can have with an entire Mario game is the same as playing courses in Mario Maker, and of course future Mario games will include lots of new features, so I don't think the two will ever be in competition. After Mario Maker 2 released, Tezuka said, I do think we've probably been influenced by the things we've seen people making in Super Mario Maker up to this point, but I don't know exactly what sort of concrete form they would take in the Mario games in years to come. With things like that, we'll put the game out, see the reaction from the fans, then make decisions about what we'll do to include in games going forward. And shortly after that, for Mario's 30th anniversary, as the guy who's in charge of 2D Mario, he said his adventures are far from over. 30 years is just a checkpoint, and he fully intends to keep on making them. As for clues on what the next new Super is going to be like, it'll probably be a bit more like Luigi U. While that DLC was in development, Tezuka went back and played the older games like Mario 3, and discovered that the courses had gotten longer and longer with each new game without the devs even realizing it. That's one of the reasons the stages in Luigi U ended up being so short, and Tezuka says that he'd like to do that in future entries as well. Shorter stages with more packed into them. The fruits of that idea can already be seen in Mario Maker 2's story mode, with levels even shorter than the ones in Luigi U. And frankly, we'd be surprised if Nintendo passed on making another sequel when they sell tens of millions each. They didn't say that in all these interviews, but come on, this is Nintendo we're talking about. If there's one thing those fellas don't hate, it's money. Now that they've had a decade to come up with new ideas and gotten a boost from Mario Maker's fan-made levels, it seems like there's reasons to be optimistic for a new Super Mario. Did you know that there's also 1,200 Mario fan games publicly available on the internet, but Nintendo only DMCA'd 15 of them? Well, that doesn't seem like them. But if you want to hear all about that 1% of the fan games that got struck down, click the video on screen. If you'd like to check out my stuff, I'm an OG Nintendo creator. I recently released a super goofy live-action/animated series called Bandy's Universe, so feel free to check that out if you'd like. And a special thanks to Super Mario Broth and Eurasia for helping out with this video. And thank you for watching. See you next time.